So Gotham comes back next week for the start of its third season. Now, if you know me, you know I don't like this show. I don't like how they just shove a whole bunch of Batman characters into a time period where they wouldn't have existed. I don't like how outlandish and cartoony the whole thing is. I don't like a lot of the radical recharacterizations of most of the characters. Instead of being about one man taking on a corrupt system or a young boy dealing with the loss of his parents, it's a show about look how many cameos we can shove into an episode. And to be perfectly clear, I don't like that I don't like this show. It has Batman in it. I should automatically like it. But sometimes I feel like it actively doesn't want me to like it. This could just be me being a spoiled fanboy because this isn't the show that I wanted. This isn't how I would do a show about a young Bruce Wayne or a young Commissioner Gordon. This is how I would do it. First, let's ask ourselves, what's the overall purpose of Gotham the show? When you get right down to it, it's about showing Gotham the city before Batman shows up. It's about how the GCPD handles the criminal element in the town. It's about how crime just gets worse and worse until it reaches the point where they need an extreme hero to take on the extreme villains. And while all this is happening, there's a little boy who just experienced the most tragic event of his short life. How does one deal with that? How does one bounce back from that? These are all great questions that can be answered on a weekly show on Fox. The first thing you got to do, though, is make sure you get the right characters to tell this story. And by that, I mean not every single Batman character needs to be on this show. You don't need Catwoman, you don't need the Riddler, you sure as hell don't need the Joker or any other Joker-like characters. I've said this before, but this is one of my main problems with Smallville. Clark Kent pretty much met his entire supporting cast before he ever became Superman. It's just another example of that forced destiny garbage where everybody's got to be interconnected that ruined movies like The Amazing Spider-Man. So, let's be clear, we do not need the entire Batman cast for this. Who do we need then? Well, remember, we're telling two stories at the same time here. We're telling Bruce Wayne's and Jim Gordon's. For Bruce's story, you will need a young Bruce Wayne and Alfred, obviously. You also want Leslie Tompkins in there as she was his caretaker and helped him get through the grieving process when he was that young. You'll want Tommy Elliott because he's an actual peer of Bruce Wayne, not someone who was forced to be a peer of him. Now, instead of doing what Gotham does and shoving every single major character into their show, we can use this time to highlight some of the minor characters that can be important, like Bruce's Uncle Phil. Yeah, I bet you didn't know he had an Uncle Phil. Have him involved in the familial aspects of the Waynes and maybe even Wayne Enterprises. This way you can work in Lucius Fox naturally. Lastly, and this is the only fanboy indulgence I will partake in, I kind of want to work in Aunt Harriet in some way. Maybe have her married to Uncle Phil, just as a nice little nod to the 60s show. And that's it. That's all you need to tell Bruce's side of the story, to help him deal with the pain and loss of his parents and what to do about it. You slowly show him decide he wants to take up vigilantism, and you also slowly show him take interest in the family's legacy and preserving their name, and eventually take an active part in Wayne Enterprises. And all this should be the B story of the series. What Gordon's doing and how crime is escalating in Gotham should be the main focal point. This is what's going to have people coming back week after week to see how this man deals with all the crime that's riddled his streets and how just slowly over time it gets worse. So for this we'll need Gordon. He's not a rookie, but he's still young. Maybe he just got promoted to detective. We'll also need Harvey Bullock, Commissioner Jillian Loeb, Arnold Flask, and a fresh rookie Maggie Sawyer. These will be your leads. Now, if you want to create new characters to fill out the rest of the GCPD, that's fine too. Maybe these guys can be your red shirts. This way you can kill people off and have a lot of drama, but not sacrifice the comic book characters, the ones everybody already knows. Now, with the exception of Gordon and Sawyer, everybody on the force should be corrupt to varying degrees. Flask should be straight up crooked, no questions asked. Loeb should be crooked, but more in trying to maintain the status quo of his department than lining his pockets or working for favors. Bullock should be just a little bit less corrupt than Flask, but over the course of the show, he starts to straighten out and go on the right path. He sees how Gordon can keep his nose clean all the time, no questions asked, and it inspires him to be better. You should have Barbara Keene, Gordon's future wife, on the show. Whether or not they're married or they're going to get married in a later season, that's up in the air. It doesn't really matter. What they definitely shouldn't do is have them have kids early on. Those should come much, much later, hopefully towards the end of the series. Also, Barbara Keene is not insane. Don't put her in Arkham Asylum. WTF, mate. Now, the main ongoing thread of the series that should probably never be solved is who killed the Waynes. But the reason why this never gets solved is because it keeps getting interrupted by all the mob activity that's going on in Gotham. The mob should be so big and problematic in the city that it's just out of control and distracts from everything. The mob should be led by 4 families, and each family led by Carmine Falcone, Salvatore Marone, Rupert Thorne, remember him, and Oswald Cobblepot. Yes, I know I said we shouldn't overload it with modern-day Batman villains, but I think the Penguin can fit and work in this time frame. And this will tie all back to Bruce's story, because the Cobblepots and the Waynes are considered founding families of Gotham City. But while Thomas and Martha Wayne rose to prominence, Tucker and Miranda Cobblepot fell. And Oswald's rise to crime is another nice juxtaposition on the different directions the Waynes and the Cobblepots took. Oswald's rising to crime while Bruce is rising to justice. Now, Cobblepot should definitely be older than Bruce. He shouldn't be 10, obviously, like Bruce is, but he should be younger than all the other mafiosos. So maybe put him at like 20 years old. This is a good middle ground for him. And really, those are all the characters you need to tell a story of a pre-Batman Gotham City. Anything else just turns it into a reference fest, and you don't want to do that. Because all that does is show that you know how to read Wikipedia. It doesn't show that you know how to create a good story or do good character development. There's a lot more I could get into, like how it should be more grounded like Arrow and less flashy like it is now, with Mr. Freeze coming in and the Court of Owls and Poison Ivy aging 10 years in one episode. Not saying you can't hint at that stuff, maybe not the Poison Ivy aging, but Mr. Freeze and Court of Owls, you could do that, but subtly. I feel like a broken record because every time I talk about these movies and what I don't like about them being not subtle is a big part of it, but I just think you can do a lot with a lot less. I could also go on about how the characters in the show should be more in line with their characters from the comics. Like Jim Gordon and Leslie Tompkins should not be an item and should never be an item. And again, Barbara Keene isn't insane. Don't shove her in Arkham for no reason. But I think that what I'm presenting is a good start for a good show that can last 5 to 6 seasons, no more. Ideally, the show should end with Bruce finally deciding to travel the world and learn what he needs to learn in order to become Batman. And with Gordon putting Maroni, Falcone, and Thorne in jail, leaving Cobblepot to rise and become the Penguin, and just wait for the right kind of hero to come to take him down. It would end the series on a high note, and it would remind the world that Batman is coming and that hope is on the way. You could cop out and flash forward a couple of years to when Batman does debut to throw the Penguin in jail. I know some people might feel cheated if they don't get to see Batman and would want that kind of closure. Me personally, I would leave it open-ended, but again, that's just me. But that's how I would have done Gotham. Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet what you think should be done with this television series. Do you like it as it is, or do you think there's a lot of room for improvement? New videos every Tuesday and Wednesday, and of course, Wednesday night is Wulff Den Live, right here on YouTube, 9 p.m. Eastern. Come talk with us. If you miss it, don't worry. It goes up the next day, archived version, also in audio format on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. As always, like if you like, subscribe if you really like, share this video with a friend. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. So what do I mean by overanalyzing Batman? Well, every think piece I've seen on the internet, be it a blog or a video or what have you, seem to actively be trying to break down the minutiae of Batman and sort of prove that he's not really a good hero. Which is a shame, because when you get right down to it, all 3 films have really good central themes and main ideas that could definitely make for interesting stories.